Jackabetic. Thanks for joining us in the dialogues, man.
Great to be here, Pete. Thanks for having me.
Great backdrop.
Thanks. Yeah, well, it's not raining in Melbourne right now, so I thought I'd get out in the not so sunny sunshine.
Can you pan around at all? What's to the left? What's to our left?
Is that left?
Right. You're right. Yeah, that's left.
Okay. All right, I'm just picking up the laptop.
Yeah.
And so we are on top of Mount Dandenong, looking out over the cloud.
Yeah, that's stunning.
But it's a gorgeous little place to be isolating.
Yeah, man, that's fantastic. You're a lucky guy.
Thanks.
So, thanks for joining us in the dialogue. I mean, you and I had a bit of a chat last week, and like we just talked for like an hour. It felt like, so that was really fun. And I learned a lot about you. So, why don't we jump in, because you've got a really interesting diabetes story. Do you want to start there? You want to kind of start from the beginning? We're going to jump into your family stuff because that's great. But let's tell us about your diabetes story from the start.
All right, let's go back to when I was 16. I had no clue what diabetes was, 1 or 2. I guess I was a clueless 16-year-old running around the schoolyard, and then my sister became sick. Super thirsty, urinated a lot, migraines, couldn't sleep. And I think we went on that diabetic journey through her, and she's a super optimistic little sister, and we all as a family gathered around her and learnt everything we could to know about diabetes. I think we had a very soft introduction. All the doctors and specialists that we saw at that time said, yeah, look, you can live your full life and manage it. You just can't be an astronaut or go on the front line of a war. And my sister's like, great, wasn't planning. And so for me, I guess if you've ever heard of the analogy, speaking French, when you learn how to, you learn the ins and outs of diabetes. Yeah. So we all learned how to speak French, and then 6 months later, I became very thirsty, tired, and picking up on those signs. So I came home after school one day. I'm like, Mum, I think I have diabetes, and I'm a bit of a prankster, so no one believed me until we used my sister's blood glucose reader, and I was 15. So self-diagnosed.
So your sister was first?
My sister was first. So
yeah, how old was she?
She would have been 10.
Okay. And
so
6 months later? Wow.
6 months later, something definitely went through this household. So 6 months later, I got it. And being a bigger brother, I had to sort of be the bigger brother and feed into her optimism. I just tried to handle it as best I could, as well as like going back to that week introduction in the hospital. I already spoke French. It was a breeze for me. I had a completely different paradigm to everyone else who gets diagnosed and feels isolated. Here I was partnering up with my sister going, great, let's do this together.
How was your sister's reaction?
She was at an age, a 10-year-old in primary school, who really wanted attention, and this was her differentiation tool. So she found it as a positive spin on life.
Yeah, that's great.
And I, as a big brother, I took that away from her. So
I think we all have that a little bit, actually. I think I don't know about you, but I sometimes am a little bit proud of having that little differentiator, weirdly. Like it's not something you necessarily want, but like I guess you make the best of it, right?
Yeah, definitely. Like you may as well. Yeah. Some people hate the idea that it takes over your identity, and I don't think so. I think it adds to your identity.
Yeah.
And I'm not ashamed of saying that I'm a type 1 diabetic. It's a great icebreaker if you're ever in a conversation with strangers, or you just want to say no to some fairy floss. So but yeah, the family, I guess, introduction or the diabetic story doesn't end there. I'll quickly go through the rest of the family.
Yeah, fascinating story, man.
So I am the eldest of 4 kids, and so I've got 3 younger sisters. My middle sister got it first, then I got it, and then one day my little sister was cracking it because we were eating ice cream early after dinner because we were both hypoing, and she stormed off saying, "I wish I had diabetes." Careful what you wish for.
Really? Yeah.
Like a week later, she had the
way.
symptoms and got diagnosed. So that was 6 months after me.
And how old was she then?
She must have been 7 or 8.
Yeah.
And then we're all at the dinner table again, and my dad's just puts his fist to the table saying, "Yeah, look, if I had diabetes, I'd manage it much better than you three." And he got it a week later. So karma is real.
So hang on. So you were 6 months later, and then your younger sister was another 6 months later. So there's 3 of you within a year, and then your dad was a week later.
Dad got it more like roughly a couple of months later. We didn't really memorize when our diagnoses were.
But we're talking what? We're talking. So what's that? 1, 2, 3, 4.
Over the course of
within a year and a half, 2 years.
Yeah, within 2 years, 4 of us. So that's a family of 6. The majority had type 1 diabetes. We got genetically tested at the Royal Children's Hospital in Melbourne that specialise in it, and it turned out that we were all carriers of the gene. Good to know. Except my other sister can get it, wasn't triggered.
Okay. And do the doctors hypothesize about what it is? I mean, is it just purely genetic, or is it a virus that went through the family? Were you all really stressed? Like, has anyone got any hypotheses?
There's plenty of hypotheses. Don't go on the internet. I remember when this was happening, it was in the news saying it's something to do with dairy. But like I know diabetics that don't drink dairy, and koalas can get diabetes without dairy. So it's not dairy, 100%. But it's a virus that went through the house. Yeah. Now it went through the house, and then
so you're sure about that? Like, you know, there was a virus?
The internet is leaning towards virus. There's companies working on the internet. But like, I believe it because a virus did go through the house. It wasn't anything special. It could have just been a cold. Because my sister that didn't get it wasn't really in the house around that time. So we all got it. Then it just stayed latent. That triggered us later over that 2-year period. So that's why it'd be such a hard thing to track down, figuring out what the trigger was. Anyway, that's mostly my perception, and it feels like out of all the hypotheses, feels right for me. And also to keep in mind, every mammal and marsupial can get type 1 diabetes.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about reptiles or birds, but as far as I know, there's definitely marsupials and mammals. So it's a genetic thing triggered by viruses. Another weird twist on all this right now, while we're talking in the age of COVID, coronavirus can trigger type 1 diabetes. That's what's coming out in the research right now. There's a lot of correlations that young children who have had coronavirus later develop type 1 diabetes. That's what the internet's saying at the moment.
That's a pretty quick turnaround, isn't it? I mean, it wouldn't surprise me, because I would unscientifically hypothesize that like anything that's messing with your immune system, because it's really just a malfunction, right? Your body looks at these beta cells and doesn't recognize them, and it's sort of this chemical cascade. So I'd imagine, you know, many things could set it off. So I wouldn't be surprised that COVID could set it off. Yeah,
I mean, is there anything COVID doesn't do that's terrible for the world? But anyway, I thought that was pretty novel. So there could be an influx of type 1s.
So your mum and your other sister, are they nervous?
No, not nervous. I think my mum's just trying to manage us all as best she can. And my sister should be nervous because she's got a phobia of needles. So.
And is there is there another household that you're aware of that has diabetes to this extent?
Not personally, but thanks to the internet, there are a couple of households that this has happened. It's just genetic lottery, and then being triggered.
So I suppose you're lucky in some senses, and you're all kind of lucky in some senses that you have that support, that it's normalized, that like, I don't know, you can be there for each other. And, you know, I suppose that does make it a more positive experience.
Definitely, and that's why it was such a different experience when I started jumping into the type 1 diabetic community. Everyone was telling me, or I was getting a feeling that everyone's super isolated. I've met diabetics in the real world that I guess were sort of like, yeah, their families, that they didn't really have any support or anyone they could connect to, whereas I had my whole family as a support group. And we all shared our experiences across the dinner table. So very different experience for myself. And yeah, I think that's why I really try to promote getting plugged into the type 1 community. Let it be digital or reality. It's fantastic. You meet people that have all these experiences, and you know you're not alone.
Yeah, totally. And you do have a positive attitude around all of this, and you also do give back to the community quite extensively. Do you want to give us a little bit of a snippet of your adolescent experience? Like, and I suppose keeping in mind as well that like it's maybe different. Like maybe you're on the spectrum of like having a particularly positive, or maybe your attitude anyway to life, and maybe this was part of your upbringing, your family. It enabled you to kind of look at this thing quite positively, because you do certainly like have, you know, a really optimistic, positive outlook around this whole thing. Whereas some people can actually go the other way, right? They can feel pretty shitty about what they've got, and they can feel down and feel like that, you know, their life kind of sucks because they have this disease. Whereas that doesn't seem to be your outlook at all.
Well, yeah, I think the deck was stacked the other way for me. I have not really experienced the serious downs of this condition. And I've never had the chance to hide it either, that's the other trigger to like isolation, because it's such a easy thing to hide that people are just, you know, want to go about, be as normal as possible and go about their lives, especially if you're in high school or anything. However, all my mates knew what was going on. They knew my sister was a type 1 diabetic. I got back there and the whole high school knew. So I just went about my day going, hey guys, diabetic, look out. So I guess, like I said, the whole deck was stacked in a different way from the start, because I already knew how to speak French. I already knew how to manage it. I knew my possibilities. I knew that my life didn't have to change all that much. And it was the same year, and I think it was year 9, 16-year-old, that I was like doing my surf lifesaving and doing a whole lot of other camps and things. And yeah, it was a very tough year, lots of hypos, but I guess I was ignorant in that aspect, where I didn't really think I couldn't do anything. It was just a matter of managing it.
So have there been any lowlights for you?
Just maybe when I'm running out into the surf and then realize I'm hypoing and then have to run back out to eat something. There's been a few hairy moments now and again where I can't find any food, or I left the insulin in the sun. So the low lights would more be around having to see specialists, doctors, and require insulin. But if anything, it's kept me on the straight and narrow, kept me healthy. Steered away negative things in life, like, I don't know, party, drugs, and everything. And I guess for me the positives outweigh a few negatives.
That's cool.
I guess,
that's cool. So talking about interaction with the medical community, I'm always fascinated actually about understanding people's sort of interaction. Partly because like I haven't had a lot of interaction, and what I have had hasn't necessarily been negative, but it's just been a little bit like not that helpful, I suppose. Until recently, I found a great nurse educator recently, and I've engaged a bit more with the community. So I'm a bit more interested in kind of staying engaged and the kind of and finding CGMs as well. You're like, oh, there's technology that's coming. Maybe I should stay engaged because I'll find out about this stuff more quickly. So it's kind of led me to be a little bit more interested in the community. But before that, I was like, I didn't see anyone for ages because they, you know, the endos would just ask the same questions. Like every time you go, you spend the first half an hour answering the same questions you answered last time. So I just went, well, this isn't really helpful for me. So I didn't bother. But what's your general experience been like from the beginning with the medical community?
All right. I'm having better relationships now then. Say when I first was diagnosed, I guess when it came to the medical side of things,
Sulfur-crested cockatoos.
oh yeah, can you hear them? They're
Yeah.
flying overhead.
It's my spirit animal.
Well, perfect. I'll leave something out for them, and they'll fly all around here.
They're the best.
Medical community wasn't stoked with them at the start because I was self-diagnosed at a fairly low rate, low sugars.
Yeah.
I honeymooned for nearly 2 years,
Nice.
and so they kept putting me on doses that weren't working out for me. And I speak to them, and they were like, "Okay, try this, try that, try this." I'm like,
Too high.
"It's not working." What's that?
Too high. Doses too high or something.
The doses were too high, so my sugars were always too low.
Yeah. Right.
So I think from the start, I just stopped listening to them. I'm like, I get the game. I know how to play it.
Yeah.
I'm just going to do it myself because it's safer to do so. So I did that. I stopped listening to them, and I had my long acting, and I started just working it out that way.
Yeah. And you just had a long acting at the beginning, no short acting that needed.
At the beginning, I just had long acting unless I was having a very carby meal, and then I have a little bit of insulin, and then I'd correct. It was the safest thing to do rather than I think it was on like 10 units of Nova Rapid every, so many portions of carbs. Yeah. So I just had to take it into my own hands early on. And then recently my GP just kept saying, "You don't need any specialists, you see me." And I'm like, that's okay. All right, that's strange.
That's interesting, actually. What I make of that is that actually in the medical community, and I'm sorry, this isn't against the medical community, but I think there is competition for treating diabetics, because I think we're worth something to the community. I think if you're managing a diabetic, you get a lot of contact, and you get paid. So I think
it makes sense.
Yeah, and I think that I get why GPs want to manage it, because I think that it's a kind of softer, lower level style of management, or it feels like that anyway. You don't have to go into a hospital, you don't have to see a specialist. GPs can refer you onto eyes and your feet and so on and so forth, so you can kind of get the treatment and so on. So I don't mind GPs doing that, but I have noticed definitely competition for wanting to kind of get to manage the diabetics.
Yeah, and I found it really ironic because I went to see him to get referred to an endo. Yeah. So it was sort of like, oh, okay, well, if you're not going to push me forward, I'll speak to you. And so I put together a bit of a local specialists with, podiatry and eye checks and everything. So I've done it myself again there. But I do have a diabetic educator. I think it's important to check in with diabetic educators for a number of reasons, to, like you said before, just so you know where the technology is at, because they know what's coming into Australia. Once again, the internet's a bit different. And also, they are ideal to get, I don't have it on me, but insulin pens that aren't disposable.
Yeah.
The best place to go. Yeah, so disposable. Not disposable.
I'm probably not. I'm only on camera when I speak, so I have to speak in order for people to see what I'm holding up. So that's when you have a cartridge, right? It's still Nova Rapid, but you have like the cartridge that goes. I don't use that. Yeah, it's reusable. I don't use those. I only use the disposable ones now. That's just been sitting in my fridge for ages, and I got it out last night for a random reason.
Perfect example. However, like I've been trying to move away from the disposable ones only because of the waste, especially when you go camping or, you're living in a small space or you're traveling. You want little cartridges that you can pack, not those pens, which just take up so much more. And then when you use them and they're done, you've just got a piece of plastic. So
thanks, man. Now I feel guilty.
sorry to do that on camera.
I'll reconsider what I'm doing now.
Yeah, so speak to your diabetic educator. It's like a little diabetic hack here, because they will have pens for you to have for free. So get the reusable pens.
Yeah, I got that for free. I got a few of those in the fridge still from years ago. NHS, thank you.
Yeah, great. Except the hardest part there is making sure the chemist and also the GP write the right script to get the cartridges, because they're so used to handing out disposable pens.
Yeah, I've had both happen where I've ordered the cartridges and got the disposables, or ordered the disposables and got the cartridges. It just yeah, you have to. I just every time I'm in there, make sure it's this one, and make sure it's this one.
Yeah. Yeah, awesome.
Okay, so cool. So, and now, like, how often are you engaging in the medical community, and like, what's the experience like?
The experience is pretty good. I think I've worked it out for myself in a weird way. Like, if I have a problem, I know who to speak to. If I'm curious about something, I know who to call.
Yeah.
So, but at the same time, I don't use them as often as I should. I still go to the GP to get my HbA1c checked every 3 to 6 months.
What is it?
What is it? My HbA1c?
Yeah.
I think I am 7.1. So I'm definitely aiming to get that down into the 6s.
Yeah, nice.
But like, I think it fluctuates more than they let on because, depending on your lifestyle and things change. So
Totally.
you always have to be on top of it.
And what about your family? Do you all see the same doctors?
No, we don't. I think we're starting to. No, we don't. I don't know why. We had a family doctor, but he wasn't working out for any of us. So we all kind of just did our own thing and found our own doctors. It's
and what
kind
about
of a strange dynamic there?
What about current management? One, like, tell us, what you're doing, what you've done, and what you're doing. I know you've got a Libre on right now, so it's a bit of a leading question, but certainly curious to hear about like your whole experience with moving to CGMs, etc., and what you've tried and what's working, what's not.
Yep. CGMs, I think, are the game changers for type 1 diabetics. I've tried pumps. I'm on pens. I'm currently using the Freestyle Libre. I have the Night Rider for the Freestyle Libre to turn that into a CGM. However, I don't use that often because you have to keep changing the battery and it's very clunky.
And is that like one of the like a cap that fits on top of it, a round thing?
That's the one. And the first issue I ran into is once it worked for 1 week and I got it all set up and it was great.
Yeah.
I pulled it off and the Freestyle Libre was stuck in it and I couldn't use it again until I worked out how to pull them apart.
That's annoying.
But thanks to the internet, someone came up with a solution. So there is a way. You sort of like dig out the back of the Freestyle Libre and then pop it out with a spoon. But
Nice.
it's a bit of a design flaw personally. I think so. So yeah, right now managing with a flash glucose monitor, which is the Freestyle Libre, and pens, and also just trying to eat low carb where possible.
How's that going?
It goes okay. Sometimes you just want to eat more carbs.
Hell yeah.
So yeah, you got to live, and also exercise. I'd say exercise is a big part of the management because that does keep my levels level.
What are you doing exercise-wise? Sorry, I've got seeing as though he's here, I'll give him a little bit of an intro to the dialogue community. Say hello to Hank. Say hi to the dialogues community, Hank. He wants to hop down. This is a new little addition to the household. He just pinched one of my socks from under the desk. Anyway, that's Hank. Sorry to interrupt you there.
You're right. It's actually starting to rain in Melbourne.
I noticed that actually. You're a true mountain man.
I'm gonna walk and talk.
Yeah, walk and talk.
Until they find some cover.
Is it raining pretty heavily? Is it? You can't notice it that much on camera.
Not too heavily just yet, but I am worried about it getting into the keyboard.
Oh yeah. Such a lovely backdrop there, man. Such a lovely spot. It's kind of is it the Dandenong Ranges?
Yeah, Dandenong Ranges. Up the top, pretty fun.
What an amazing part of the world.
I'm gonna park you here. Does this work? All right.
Where were we?
Right.
What were we?
Scene change.
Yeah, no, that's good. It's good. Well done. Seamless.
Where were we? Specialists, diabetes, puppies, raining.
I did interrupt there. Well, I'm not sure what we were talking about before Hank came along.
Freestyle Libre and what I guess my management.
Oh yeah. Your experiences with
And
the
you asked me
technology and
what
stuff.
exercise.
Oh yeah, that's right. I was
Asked me-
saying what. Yeah, I'm curious. I mean, I'm into a bit of exercise, and yeah, it's totally it's a game changer for me. Like for many reasons, right? Not just your blood sugar levels, just general day-to-day health, but like I just notice I need so much less insulin when I exercise consistently, and it almost tells me like, like if I don't do a hard enough workout, I'll know because I won't need to take what I would expect to take insulin wise when I do a hard enough workout. It really tells me whether I've shocked my body enough to kind of take it to that next level of needing less insulin, if that makes sense.
Definitely. I think it's so important. It also increases your insulin sensitivity, and I think that's what you're kind of leading to there. And yeah, it just activates the body, so everything's functioning at a much better rate, and you feel better about it. So I think it's good for mental. I think it's good for your insulin, and I think it's just good for overall health.
Yeah, totally.
And once you get into a rhythm, I think it's fantastic. So what I do, I go for runs at the moment, being in lockdown, and but originally it'd be surfing and swimming as well, but I can't do any of that yet because there's no body of water to swim in within my 5 kilometers.
Would you, I mean, we're getting a little bit off topic here, but just out of personal interest, sorry, audience, like from the Dandenong Ranges, where's there a surf beach?
Yeah, good point. Well, as I led on to when I was 16, I did a surf lifesaving bronze medallion, and I joined a surf club.
Nice.
And I go down to Phillip Island and surf and surf lifesave. So
you're brave.
Yeah, sure. It's a lot of fun, and yeah, I guess that's where you can find me every summer.
Nice, that's fantastic. Okay, so actually one of the things I did want to touch on was you do a bit in and around the community, right? You give back quite a bit and you're engaged quite a bit with the community. Do you want to talk about your work and kind of like what your experiences have been?
Sure. The community, I'm guessing we're talking about the type 1 diabetic community.
Yeah.
It's been good. And let's just say the last few years, I think the last 5 to 7 years, the community's really exploded. So I sort of dove in there after doing a solo trip around India, just to share some things. And I was curious about what people were doing and how they were managing. So, but as soon as I jumped in there, I'm like, okay, cool. There's a big group out there, a lot of social influencers, and then I'm like, all right, but where are the Australian ones? And they're a bit harder to find, but there's more and more jumping on there every day, and there's so many people that sooner or later, March last year, I was thinking about I want to do a meetup just to catch up with all the Melbourne folk with type 1. It'd be great. I'd love to do something that was real, not digital. And I think I was just about to hit enter, and I saw someone else that was really local actually put up that they wanted to do a meetup as well. I'm like, great. Got in touch with them right away, and then we're like, let's do it. Let's promote it to our channels, and let's catch up with everyone in Melbourne. And that was the launch of the Die Avengers. So we created the Die Avengers.
It's almost as cheesy as Jackabetic.
Well, yeah. Thank you. Can't take credit for the name. The name was actually done by Alex, one of our youngest members, and the Avengers Endgame and everything was coming out at the time, so it was very topical.
Nice.
And now we just still catch up, and it's mostly young adults. And I guess once you get out of that adolescent years, there is no support. There's no diabetic camps. You just sort of get left in the lurch, especially if you're diagnosed at 18 onwards. You're just like, great. The only diabetics I know and people I know are specialists. So the Die Avengers is sort of trying to get around that. And now we have Zoom meetings, and it's actually been my main social life recently.
That's cool.
I'm loving it. And I guess to give back, it's more that I'm diving in and loving everything everyone's doing in the community, from t-shirts to
is that a t-shirt you're wearing? Is that a
So This is today's one difference, T1D, very
Yeah.
subtly diabetic brand, done by Simon, who's a local to Melbourne
Yeah.
guy. And I just get around him. There's a few great little diabetic brands popping up here and there with great designs. So can't
So
help but
that's a brand by someone in Victoria, and they just make t-shirts or they make other stuff.
Yep, they've just come out with a few cool little T-shirts with subtle. Let's see if you can spot it.
Oh
Like
yeah,
you got the little
it is
blue
subtle. Yeah,
circle,
no,
the
I can see it.
T1D.
It's cool. Yeah.
It's and I like the idea because it's cool. It's subtly bringing that awareness. It's supposed to start that conversation up if anyone ever wanted to know. And there's other ones. There's Insulin Addict, which is another brand in
I've seen that one.
Tasmania.
Yeah, cool.
It's super rad.
Yeah, it's a great style, that one. It's like kind of got a bit of an 80s surf vibe. It kind of reminds me of this brand, NJaP Surf. I don't know if you ever remember that brand, but way back.
NJaP. I know NJaP.
Yeah,
I
let's
don't know
talk here,
that
right?
brand. Yeah.
It was one of the very first Australian surf brands. It was called NJaP Surf.
Ah, yeah, cool. Yeah, no, I do love that retro style. So there you go for those retro surf brand enthusiasts.
Diabetic retro surf brand enthusiasts.
Yeah.
What is it? Insulin Addict, isn't it?
Insulin Addict. So there's a few brands out there. It's just about supporting each other and
Yeah.
getting around it and creating awareness. I mean, it's all great, and it all comes back to help us out. So
That is
I'm
cool.
very stoked.
We'll start wrapping up. Is there any other anything else we want to give a plug for in terms of the community? I think like the shout outs here are good because we're talking about little brands, right? That aren't out there to make, global profit kind of motives. Is there anyone else? So Insulin Addict, and what's the name of the guy with the t-shirt?
This is today's one difference.
Okay.
So that's Simon. And I'd have to say the Type 1 Foundation. They're bringing together the community in Victoria and in Australia like none other. So definitely get around the Type 1 Foundation. They really support families and individuals who have diabetes and just making that whole process easier. The process of acceptance and access to information. So definitely get around the Type 1 Foundation and just not a patch. Am I right?
That's good, man. I like that. Well, you might as well show us, seeing as though you've mentioned it now.
All right. I'll have
you don't have to take your whole shirt off, man. You can just you can take your whole shirt off if you want.
All right. So before, I know it was on my arm not too long ago, as you can see, and your patch held it on beautifully. Loved it. Nice. But recently moved it to my chest. I do move it around my body a bit, just in locations that work. Anyway, I'm going to have to show you. It is raining here, so.
You go on. Oh, dude, look at you. This is going to be the best dialogues episode ever, dude. I put this in the highlights. Jackabetic gets his shirt off.
All right. That's enough.
The Hugh Grant of the Dandenong Rangers. Oh, dude, what a highlight. That's a great advertisement for Not Just a Patch as well, by the way. Can you send me some photos? We'll put them on our Instagram page.
Sure. I guess patches in other places. Can do. But no, I've just like the rest of the diabetic products and brands out there. It's like what you're doing. This is fantastic. These work really well. Before I was using Tegaderm film, which is more of a wound holder in, and hold stitches together, where this works so much better for the Freestyle Libre. It's breathable, it stays on, and it's easy to get the tape off if you need to replace it and put another one back on. So I'm very stoked with your product.
You're a legend.
Cheers.
Dude, it's been awesome having you on. You are an inspiration for the community, I think. You've got such a positive outlook, and you're a great kind of example, I think, of, a type of attitude that kind of takes it in his stride and gives back to the community. So appreciate you being a part of the dialogues, man.
Oh, look, Pete, I love what you're doing. I love this. I love your brand, and I'm stoked to get to meet you and speak to you. It's been fantastic.
Take it easy, my man. We'll speak soon. Take care.